Good morning, everybody. Vlogs are all the rage right now, so I'm going to go ahead and throw my hat in the ring here. I also have serious concerns that Nostr is becoming way too centralized around American HODL, so let's all do our part and start making random videos of ourselves talking about everything and anything in the world. And I mean that jokingly, of course. I'm really loving the content. It gets a different perspective of people when they just go off on a rant, and it allows us to really learn about who that person is and what's on their mind. So I encourage you to start your own vlog, start posting, and let's get to know each other a little better and talk about the important things in life. So it's dark. I'm walking. I got a ruck on with about 30 pounds of weight in it just to get my sweat on, and I got my dog out here with me in the dark. We're just walking, get some miles and thinking about life. So I'm going to probably go dark here a little bit while I'm talking because of the lighting. So I apologize for that, but who cares? Just listen anyway, and let's start talking. So what has been on my mind lately in Bitcoin and the world, especially for young men and everything going on? Well, I thought of this concept of there's a lot of people out there that are Bitcoiners that are stacking and working hard and doing great things, but they're still, having to go to the fiat mines every day and, building their stack that way. And I'm included in that group, so I'm not saying, there's anything wrong with that. So I'm in a position where I still got to mine fiat. I got to save as much as I can in Bitcoin, dollar cost average, all that type of stuff. And, hope that will pay off and there will be a brighter tomorrow where I can focus more of my time and energy into the true things that I want to pursue. And for me, in my case, that's, doing things like this, walking my dog, talking to random people on the internet, learning, reading books, spending time with my family, you name it, anything besides chasing fiat, really. So there's a lot there. But I have this fear that, Bitcoin's going to take off. People aren't going to be able to stack as much, and they might end up trapped in the old system. And then at that point, I don't know if there's any hope for them. Who knows? But so there's this concept called the Great Harvesting, which has been coined by a guy named Adam Livingston. You could check him out on YouTube. Don't know if he's on Nostr yet, but he wrote a book called The Great Harvesting, and it's basically talking about how AI is going to take a lot of jobs, and nobody will have any, no humans will have any productive output that they can do anymore that will produce incomes and all this type of stuff. And it's good. I haven't read it myself, but I've listened to his videos and content on YouTube, so I kind of have a good idea where he's going with that. I will buy his book and read it and do a review for it eventually, but I mean, think about it. There's a lot of jobs that are going to be rendered useless as AI gets better and better and better, and there's going to be a lot of people out of work. And if those people don't have something productive to do, that is going to be a huge problem, and they are going to be forced to centralize more and bend to the will of the powers that have the AI and the powers that have the money and resources and food and things like that. It's kind of a bleak outlook on life, but it is unfortunately the system we're fighting against in Bitcoin and decentralization. So that's why we're here. Stay tuned, right? Anyway, so I thought about a concept of transitioning smoother from centralized to decentralized. And Jeff Booth talks about this a lot, but there's two systems. You have the free market, and then you have the centralized control market, which is what we're in now. And they can't coexist, and they can't coexist without friction or clash. And I agree with them, because You have great things going on in one. Things are getting better. Prices are going down. Freedom is going up in the decentralized open free market. And in the control market, you have inflation, you have thievery, you have prices going up forever. You have deception, you have time and energy being stolen from good hardworking people. And yes, that is going to create chaos in the world. And so I'm just trying to think of ways that, grassroots level people like myself can help themselves and others transition into the decentralized world and a better tomorrow a little bit more gracefully. And so a concept I had, and again, if I had an hour of Jeff Booth's time, this is what I would talk to him about, is using Bitcoin to get companies, get your employer, whoever, to kind of see the light and come around before it's too late and before they become, obsolete, and, end up being a winner that comes out on top in the new world and can dominate the market. And, if you can help them as a Bitcoiner do that, chances are they're going to want to keep you around, and they're going to be grateful for your knowledge and expertise in the area. And, maybe you don't have to lose your job that you like doing. It might just change. It will change regardless if you do this or not. But so here's the concept. Enough rambling. Here's the concept. So at least in my industry and a lot of industries in the US, the market is basically an oligopoly, especially in manufacturing. So let's just make a hypothetical situation. So you have three companies, company A, B, and C. They all produce the same widget at near same market price, same features, all that type of deal. That's pretty much how it's working in most of the Western world right now. And it's typically just a shell game on price. And whoever can, get the lower price wins the market. And that's what value is sold on now is, hey, can you get yourself lower than the competitors? And this comes at a cost to the business because they have rising labor costs, they have rising input costs, material costs, things like that. Everything's more expensive. And so the only thing they can possibly do is cut into their margin to lower prices and beat their competition, really. It's hard. Companies don't really have many opportunities to innovate. We've already done that. We've already gone to, the economies of scale and doing things in other countries where they have cheaper labor, all that. So we're getting tapped out on the available options we have to lower prices. And so what I've found is the manufacturing companies especially, that figure out Bitcoin first are going to be the ones that win in the future. And here's why. If you were competing against two other companies in a system for a market, and you all basically had the same pricing structure, same quality, everything like that, that's kind of where everybody's settled right now, and you were competing on price alone, then the first company to move into a Bitcoin standard is going to start outperforming the other two and have the opportunity to win the market from the other two. And here's how. If I'm running company A, let's say I'm making a 30% gross margin in fiat dollars every year, your actual net margin is probably significantly less than that. Let's say it's anywhere from 8 to 10% or whatever. After everything's paid out, that's the little bit of capital that you get to keep and deploy back into the company some way or another. Well, let's say you take a portion of that profit and start a Bitcoin reserve, a Bitcoin treasury, right? Not in the same sense of all these other Bitcoin treasury companies. It's just, instead of buying bonds at 3 or 4%, you buy Bitcoin and you hold it long term. right? So you have that policy. Well, Bitcoin compounds at, 45% annually. And so if you are doing that and stacking Bitcoin, just like an individual, just like a family, if a business is doing this, then you are going to start outperforming your competitors in not that long of time, right? Bitcoin is working harder than you are. So if you're making 30% gross margin producing a product and 8 to 10% net margin or something like that producing a product, that's essentially your return rate and all the work that you have to put into it, right? So you put in all this work, time, and money investment just to make that amount of money in return, where you could be saving in Bitcoin, doing nothing but holding it and making significantly more than that. So why is that important? Well, company A starts doing that. They save a portion of their profits in Bitcoin and hold on to them for the future. That is going to start enabling them to deploy the Bitcoin in strategic ways. And one way that I've thought about it is, if you build a reserve of Bitcoin and you start to ride that appreciation, well, you could use that growth to start kind of subsidizing, your sales to customers and lowering the material cost by, employing the power of deflation of Bitcoin. So if you're buying materials in fiat, they're increasing year over year, a couple percent, whatever. But if you're starting to buy materials in Bitcoin, well, we know that's trending to the marginal cost of production or possibly zero. So your material input costs would be getting cheaper and cheaper on a Bitcoin standard. Their material costs are getting more and more expensive on a fiat standard. So you could get to a point where you could make the same widgets for a lower cost using Bitcoin. Then you have your ticket to win the oligopoly and lower your prices and still maintain a healthy margin to keep your business running. And beating out your other competitors to the point that they're going to go out of business because they can't drive down their costs using fiat. All they can do is lay people off, penny pinch, try to become more efficient, whatever. That's what most companies are doing. And we all know that doesn't work long term. So in my opinion, Bitcoin is the way that companies could make it into the new world, as long as they're humble and willing enough to learn about it and deploy it accurately and precisely. But we have a lot of work to do in helping people understand that. And so that's one way that I've thought that a lot of Bitcoiners could try to transition and not lose their jobs and, still add value and whatever, because that's incredibly important. You don't want to lose your source of income just yet because you have bills to pay, you're building your Bitcoin stack, whatever. You don't have 6.15 Bitcoin to ride on. Again, another jab at HODL there. No disrespect intended at all. Just trying to be a little bit funny here. It's not working out, but so just a concept I thought about. So if you're in the fiat world, if you're working, if you're in manufacturing, whatever, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that. What you think about, companies. I'm talking real I'm not talking Fortune 500s. They're already centralized and going down their own paths that, nobody can control except for board members, shareholders, etc. I'm talking about what can, mom and pop manufacturing companies do, or privately held manufacturing companies do, to weather the storm and come out on top. Because, not every company's bad. You have to realize that jobs are a handout, and that's okay. So many people with a fiat mindset get tied up with their whole identity in their job, and they don't even realize if you say something like, yeah, job's a handout, they get immediately offended. And it's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. So anyway, here's a big, long 15-minute vlog for everybody. If you've listened to me this far, I do appreciate you. Again, trying to decentralize and talk about things. If you are out there in the world thinking about things related to Bitcoin, the economy, anything, health, fitness, whatever, I'm interested to hear from you, not from mass media or centralized influencers, crap like that. So, and before I tie it up here, I'm just going to do a little sweep and show landscape and stuff like that, because it is a beautiful morning. I hope you're being active. But every time I show my dog in a video, it usually gets more views because the algorithms are picking that up, I guess. I don't know. But see if I can get him to come back here. Come here, bud. Hey, come. Good boy. So it's a beautiful morning. Anyway, get up, go out, walk a little bit, walk your dog if you have one. Bonus points if you can do that off leash somewhere. Dogs deserve it. They need to be free too. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up here with this one. I've rambled way too long, and I'll see you in the next one.